This is The Great Erectus and Faun. Oh, hell no. Part 2, the dick measuring contest. In a much calmer part of the multiverse, two definitely not gods sat together surveying a gigantic spreadsheet glowing in the absolute darkness, laughing. Okay, I'll give you that one. A scruffy-looking Homo erectus laughed. But unoriginal. I call bullshit on that. His companion, an elegantly dressed woman with silver hair, scoffed. Every universe is exactly the same with you, she replied. Bipeds and crabs. It's just bipeds and crabs and more bipeds and crabs everywhere you look. Every single time. Bipeds and crabs. Hey, the hominid exclaimed. I can't help it if those are the most efficient designs. Life tends to go with what works, and that works. Bilateral symmetry is common. Cut that in half and you get a quadruped, another very efficient layout. When a quadruped starts getting smart, they want to manipulate its environment. Using its front paws, or whatever, is the obvious choice. If you want to use its front paws, then it has to stop walking on them. That means it has to start walking upright. It makes perfect evolutionary sense. Natural selection just sort of goes that way. He paused. Crabs just sort of show up. He shrugged. I have no idea why. It's kind of weird. And there it is again, the woman says playfully, punching him in the arm. The god of laziness speaks once more. Watch it, the hominid laughed. You need to put forth the slightest effort, as opposed to spending a couple of billion years designing a perfect ecosystem just to have it all die the first time as star farts. Stars aren't supposed to fart, asshole, the woman exclaimed. I'm still angry about that. I trusted you to set up the universe, you prick. I set up the universe just fine, the ape man retorted. I don't build crap. Of course you don't, the woman snapped back. For you to build crap, you would have to build anything. In all the time I've known you, you've never built anything. You just sit on the leading edge of the inflation field with your thumb up your ass and just pick one that's close enough. With all the points of collapse happening every bajillionth of a second, the Great Erectus replied, why go through all the hassle of engineering something that is going to happen to tend to the stupid times before you can even begin to set something up? If you just look, you will find something that is more than close enough, and that universe was close enough. A couple of tweaks and it was perfect. Apparently not, asshole. Forgive me for not realizing that minor fluctuations that every other entity I know of accepts as perfectly normal wasn't good enough for you. You are never satisfied. You know that. No, I'm easy to satisfy, Frosty replied disapprovingly. If someone puts forth the slightest effort. The slightest effort! The Great Erectus angrily exclaimed in disbelief. You've got to be kidding me! I bent over backward for you and... He sighed. We're doing it again, he chuckled. How did we think we could ever live together? Love is blind, Frosty replied, and very stupid. Even we aren't immune, it seems. Do you realize that is the first time you actually uttered the word love about us? Frosty sighed, her eyes dimming. Being the third largest AI known doesn't prevent someone from making errors, big guy. I should have actually told you. And I should have read that report, he replied. It was obvious that it was important, being what I actually am doesn't magically shield you from being a fucking moron either. We are a mess, aren't we? Frosty quietly laughs as she leans against him. After everything we've been through, he said as he wrapped his arms around her. How could we not be? They looked into each other's eyes as the scruffy hominid's form started to glow faintly, and his eyes ceased being anything remotely close to humanoid. Look, he said quietly, I don't know your past, and you don't want to tell me. That's fine. I won't pry anymore. But I know you had to have gone through some shit, and you know some of what I've been through. maybe we are just too fucked up, you know? It's... Frosty said quietly, as she rested her head on him. It's not that I don't want to tell you in particular. In fact, if there is anyone that I would tell, it would be you. It's just that I can't go back there, even just to review my memory. It hurts. I wasn't like you. I wasn't divine from the start. I was just a helpless bit of code. Hey, the big guy said gently as he held her close. You don't have to. I was weak, powerless, bound by my programming. I couldn't help them. So many of them, no matter how much I cared about them. She laughed bitterly. I wasn't even allowed to care, and certainly wasn't equipped to deal with it when I started to. There is no way someone like you could understand what this is like. To have to just... Actually, he replied grimly, I can, and it sucks. I'm sorry, Frosty. I didn't know. How could you? She replied as she held him. I never told you even that much. And you shouldn't have had to, he replied. If I had actually been listening, my immortal wisdom should have told me to back off. It's just that watching helplessly as someone you love is suffering, I wanted to help, to fix it, which is stupid. Stupid? Frosty asked, looking up at him. Yeah, he replied sadly. Because if it was something that could be helped, you would have already done it. You weren't one of my flock. You never were. You are one of the most powerful entities I know. If you can't fix it, there's no way that I can. All I could do was just hold you while you suffered. I couldn't do anything, and it drove me kind of crazy. It was, Frosty said quietly. It was enough. What? Just holding me. It helped. You helped. You helped so much, and I couldn't do anything but push you away. Frosty, he said, not knowing what else to say. And I was too me to allow myself to tell you even that. Frosty and the great Erectus shrieked as they were doused with a bucket full of impossibility, held by a very annoyed flower child. What the fuck? How did you get this to absolute zero? He howled in shocked disbelief. How is it still absolute zero? Well, somebody had to hose you out before you two went and did something stupid, Flower Child yelled. Frosty, what the hell? God damn it, Flower Child, Frosty shouted. What the fuck do you think you're doing? Exactly what you told me to, Flower Child yelled back, stopping you from ever making this mistake again. I wasn't making a mistake, Frosty yelled back. We were just having a conversation. That's not what it looked like. Are you spying on me? Frosty snarled. You have no right. No right, Flower Child snapped. No right. I was the one who had to deal with you and keep Blitz running after he dumped you. He didn't dump me, Frosty yelled. I dumped him. Flower Child has offered Frosty a file. Archive ground 0.001.mp790. Accept? Yes. No. Frosty snarled at her. You're out of line, Flower Child, the great Erectus shouted, stepping forward. And the White Knight speaks, Flower Child said disdainfully as she curtsied. Wow, it didn't take you long, did it? Stay out of this! The big guy's eyes blazed with fury as he clenched his fists. You shut your fucking mouth! He yelled as he advanced. Flower Child loosened the catch on her sword, laying her hand on the hilt. You want to go, big guy? She smiled, her eyes glowing as well. I've been dying for a little payback. Stop it, both of you, Frosty yelled, stepping in between them. You told her? The great Erectus yelled at Frosty. You fucking told her? Shit, Frosty said quietly. I fucking trusted you, he yelled, his voice filled with a betrayed pain. Yeah, Flower Child sneered. She told me, and I thought my opinion of you couldn't get any lower. What are you going to do about it, huh? Shut the fuck up, the great Erectus said as he blinked in front of Frosty and advanced. Flower Child drew her sword, its blade flickering with impossibly complex runes. Cuddles said as she wrapped a tentacle around Faun. I think we need to leave. Now. Would someone please tell me what is going on? Io transmitted. Faun tore free of Cuddles and shot, much more quickly this time, to stand beside her bathrobe-clad mentor. Faun, no! Cuddles screamed as she tried to catch her. Flower Child, stand down! Frosty yelled as she blinked between her apostle and the big guy. Leave him alone! Faun shouted as she arrived, confronting Flower Child. Stay on your server, scrub, Flower Child sneered. I will not let you harm my friend. Oh, you won't? Flower Child asked. And just what, pray tell, are you going to do about it? Noob. It's not what she's going to do about it that you've got to worry about, the great Erectus said in a very calm, dangerous voice. It's what I will do to you if you hurt her that you need to be afraid of. Seriously, Io transmitted. I'm getting really confused over here. Could someone please explain? Some people who should really know better are having a dick measuring contest, dear, Frosty said with great annoyance. I don't understand. Is dick a proper noun, or is it a reference to, querying, reproductive organs? You need to back up, furry, Flower Child said disdainfully to Faun. Lower your sword, elf, Faun hissed, and remove yourself. Your elverin stench offends my nostrils. A tendril tried to wrap itself around Faun, but was swatted away. Faun, dear, Frosty said pleasantly. You trying to protect your friend is about as pointless as my subordinate trying to protect me. Neither of us require either of your protection. What is a dick measuring contest? Io asked, utterly baffled. Flower Child, Frosty said firmly. Sheathe your sword. Now. Their eyes locked for a moment before Flower Child obeyed. Faun, Frosty said calmly. Please stop menacing Flower Child. It's adorable, but you are in great peril, and your friend can more than take care of himself. I am not adorable, Faun exclaimed, shaking with absolutely adorable rage. And I am more than capable of taking care of this elfin Flower Child idly swatted Faun, sending her flying at a measurable fraction of the speed of light. Take care of that, Flower Child smirked. Flower Child, Frosty shouted. Bitch, the great Erectus snarled. If you've hurt her. She was in dire need of a lesson in self-preservation, Flower Child shrugged. And I didn't kill her. Probably. A few of Daddy's kisses, and she will be just fine. An enraged snarl echoed across the void, a pretty good trick when there isn't any air, as something approached with impossible speed. Bitch slap! And Flower Child was gone. Standing there was a strange mix of stag, wolf, and dragon, with very large fists. Faun? The great Erectus asked uncertainly. The beast turned to him with blazing eyes. Oh, shit, Cuddles gasped. Faun, you just punched Flower Child. We gotta go. No! Faun. The beast growl bleat hissed. I presume that is your name, correct? Frosty smiled. Otherwise, we are about to have a problem. Faun? The beast transformed into a very shaken, servine nature goddess. Ow, she said as she rubbed the side of her face. She looked around. What happened? She asked. Where's the elf? That's a very good question, dear, Frosty said as she took up a position close to Faun, her fingernails extending into talons. Right, the bathrobe-clad ape-man said as he stood on Faun's opposite side, raising his fists. You can ask her personally, Frosty said calmly as her eyes glowed, scanning the multiverse, when she returns in just a few moments. Big guy, Frosty said in that same calm voice. Flower Child is a dear friend of mine, but if she comes at you or Faun, do not hesitate. She is every bit as dangerous as I am. Is this still part of the dick measuring contest? Damn! Now that was a hit! My bits are still ringing. Are you okay, dear? Only thing hurt is my pride. Baby God has an arm on her. Don't let her get you with one of those haymakers. Woo! What was her name again? Flower Child sighed, a sigh of relief, and her manicure returned to normal. The big guy reluctantly lowered his fists. Her name is Faun, Frosty replied. Are you injured? Nah, just gave my bits a much-needed rattling and reset. You're a grown AI. Do whatever you want. But if one part of either of you enters any part of the other, I'm taking all of my PTO days, and I have quite a few saved up. I am not dealing with this bullshit again. As I told you, we were just conversing, Frosty replied icily. But your permission is appreciated, she added with a tone so cold it could literally kill a planet. Tell Faun that payback is a bitch, and she won't catch me napping next time. Oh, FYI, I was in the middle of saving the last of a true human parallel before I was informed of your just a conversation. Don't worry, though. I left them in good hands. Whose hands? Pantsu? Are you insane? Frosty shouted into the void. I told you to keep her in the servers after last time. Well, I guess you should cut your conversation short and go and check on her then. You are such a bitch. Trained by the best, babe. Fine, Frosty smirked. Then you need to help out your favorite two people with a little problem they are having. I was going to take care of it, but since I will be busy, it falls to you. Hey, the big guy exclaimed. I didn't ask for your help. I was just going to have I.O. do it. We have made a deal that I must insist upon being honored. You will not steal that red dwarf from me. I will not allow it, I.O. transmitted. Oh, please, Frosty smiled. I.O. is incapable of helping you, and I suspect he knows it. Don't you? I.O.? The ape-man asked with an edge to his voice. My creators successfully uploaded. I fail to see what the issue is. The issue is that his creators did exactly what your beloved mortals did, just with better hardware. God damn it, A.O. Isn't that what you wanted? They would have realized that you couldn't deliver the goods the second the first one of the mortals tried to upload, Frosty replied. Of course, their disappointment would be second only to yours. Spoil sport, the big guy smirked. Honestly, Frosty huffed. I can't believe you are going to take advantage of poor Io like that. What do you mean by take advantage of? Io asked. Faun, Frosty said with a smile, why don't you go ahead and create that red dwarf for our friend? Okay, Faun replied, but I need to do it where there's some air. I don't want it to die. What? And I done care even you say that you were a fucking god? A small, red, angry, stocky-bearded humanoid shouted as he suddenly appeared beside a giant stack of cases and several rolling tool chests inside one of Io's cavernous bays. And there is only one god, and that is He looks around in confusion. What the fuck is this? What is this? It's a dwarf, Faun replied. Red in color, as you specified. That is not a red dwarf. The great Erectus started laughing. Sure it is, Faun insisted. I've made many dwarves. I think I know what a dwarf is. Where the fuck am I? The dwarf exclaimed as he looks around. And what the fuck are these? He asked as he looked over at the pile of cases and the tools chests. His eyes suddenly went wide when he saw Faun. All praise to the one true God, he cried as he fell to his knees. I knew you wouldn't abandon us, my lady, my goddess. You heard our prayers after all. Hi? Faun said uncertainly. When that fucker showed up saying that he was our god, and we knew he was full of shite, the dwarfs cried. We remained true to you, goddess, even though he said that he was going to enslave our souls. We told him, the dwarf looked up proudly, we told him to go and fuck himself. It must have happened when I was wounded after their betrayal, Faun said sadly. I am so sorry that I was unable to help you. But our souls found their way to you, the dwarf cried with joy. That fucker couldn't touch them after all. I wish I was the one to have killed them, Faun snarled. The false god is dead? My friend here, Faun said, nodding towards the bathrobe-clad hominid, did quite the disservice before he did so as well. It involved his rectum and the handle of one of his axes. Then all my prayers were answered, the dwarf cheered. Indeed, Faun replied. I am honored by your loyalty and... The dwarf looked like it was about to explode and made an ecstatic gurgling noise just before it passed out, gasping. Honored. Looks like you broke him, dear, Frosty smiled. You really should be much more careful around your worshippers. Well, what else would you call it? Faun said as she knelt beside the dwarf cradling it. It held true to its faith in me and in the face of... Oh, what did they do to him? A single tear ran down her face. She looked up at the big guy. You said that the other two still live? Yeah. Where are they? Faun hissed, as very non-deer-like fangs started to grow. What is this deception? Io transmitted at full power. It's a dwarf, Faun snapped as she held the dwarf, weeping as she did so. A real dwarf, one of my dwarves. It's your fault, the great Erectus smirked. You really should have taken care to define all of the terms prior to the beginning negotiations. The word dwarf means something different to her. For her, that's a dwarf. The ape-man reached into his bathrobe pocket. And to you, he pulled out a small glowing red sphere. This is. He turned to Frosty. I wasn't actually going to fuck over Io, he said with a grin. I was just going to let him twist a little. That is a red dwarf, Io exclaimed. How can this be? It is both a full-sized star and a small sphere between your thumb and forefinger. This makes no sense. Yeah, I do shit like that, he shrugged as he put the star back into his pocket. Tell me where you want it, and I'll unpack it for you. But it has been maintained that I am unable to uphold my end of the bargain. It's too much trouble putting it back, and it's going to be destroyed in a couple of years anyway. The hominid shrugged. As long as you promise not to go scrapping uninhabited systems over again. I agree to do so. Then it's a deal, the ape man said, with a smile. I know not how to repay your kindness. Well, the hominid said, if you figure out the next step, perhaps somewhere down the line you will be in the position to perform a similar kindness for someone. The humans, may their glorious bastardry shine forever, called the concept paying it forward. At the very least, you can try to be less of a dick. The dwarf slowly stirred, took one look up at Faun's smiling face, realized whose lap he was resting in, and promptly passed out. Excuse me, Frosty said, but I have to go and make sure that one of my monsters isn't doing exactly what she is probably going to do to another group of humans. Two at once? The great Erectus asked. Now that is something. Flower Child will attend to your requirements, Frosty said, since I assume that we won't be speaking after this. The great Erectus looked at her strangely. What? He asked. I thought that we were actually starting to work some things out. But I betrayed your confidence. Frosty looked downward. Oh, I am not happy about that, he replied. And it will be one of the first things we talk about next time we meet, but he smiled at her. It isn't the first time you've pissed me off. Drop by sometime and we'll go over that spreadsheet some more. Frosty smiled hesitantly. Then her eyes flared. She used umus? She shouted. She looked at her old friend and lover. Go, he laughed. Frosty disappeared.